Our story today takes us to Erwin, Tennessee. Erwin is located in northeast Tennessee, south of Johnson City. For most of its existence, Erwin is kept to itself and stayed out of the history books. That is, except for in 1916, when the small rural town would become infamous for one of the strangest incidents you'll ever hear of: the hanging, yes, the hanging, of Mary the circus elephant. At the turn of the century, the railroad boom struck Erwin, and its population tripled from the year 1900 to 1916. This, combined with the new railroad repair facilities built by the Cincinnati and Ohio Railroad, made Erwin a town with a newfound importance. Little did the railroad town of Erwin know that one event would stain the town's legacy forever after. Traveling circuses were popular at the time, especially in railroad towns, since that's how the circus traveled. There were levels to the circus profession. You had Barnum and Bailey's circus at the top tier, having to use 84 rail cars to travel. Then you had John Robinson's four-ring circus in the South, which used 42 rail cars to travel. And finally, there was Charlie Sparks and his small circus using only 10 cars to travel. While Sparks had a smaller circus compared to the big boys, he was able to compete because of his incredible marketing, which labeled his own Mary the elephant as the largest living animal in the world. Sparks claimed she was a full 3 inches taller than P.T. Barnum's largest elephant. Mary herself was an exquisite animal. She weighed 5 tons and could play up to 25 tunes on the musical horns, not to mention her 400 batting average in the circus baseball game routines. She was worth $20,000 at the time, about $500,000 in today's money. Mary was the cash cow of Sparks' circus. However, there were rumors that Mary was a dangerous creature, having killed men, the number of which changed based on the person you talked to. On Monday, September 11th, 1916, Sparks' circus arrived in a small Virginia town. While there, Sparks hired a drifter named Red Eldridge to be an elephant handler. Well, the problem was that Red had no experience handling elephants, and that's where the danger begins. The next day, Sparks' circus rolled into Kingsport, Tennessee, about 40 miles northwest of Erwin. The circus performed in Kingsport that day. After the performance, this is where accounts of what happened begin to diverge. For our purposes, we're going to follow the account of W.H. Coleman, who was only 19 when the events occurred. With the Kingsport performance done, Red was ordered to ride Mary the elephant down to a close pond, where she could enjoy some water time with her fellow elephants. On the way back from the pond, Mary reached out for a watermelon that somebody had left behind on the side of the street. Well, Red took the hooked, spear-like stick that he used for discipline and pulled Mary back with it. When he did, Mary roared and wrapped her trunk around Red's waist, then threw him into a drink stand. The initial strike probably killed Red, but according to Coleman, Mary then walked over to Red's body and crushed his head with a stomp. And so a man, albeit a man that shouldn't have been handling elephants, was dead, and people wanted justice. A unique storm had been brewing that year already in northeast Tennessee. Johnson City, situated in between Erwin and Kingsport, had already made laws that limited the circus's ability to perform. Charlie Sparks knew that if the people didn't get justice for Red's death, then there would be no more traveling circuses welcome in northeast Tennessee. The only problem with getting justice in this situation was that the people wanted that justice to be Mary's execution. But how would they execute a massive elephant? Well, a local blacksmith tried to execute Mary first by shooting her 5 times. When that didn't work, a crowd began to form. The local sheriff then took his turn with his .45, and again, the bullets didn't faze Mary. Charlie Sparks explained to the angry crowd that shooting Mary would not kill her, and he told them they'd have to find another way. So, someone from the crowd suggested electrocution. When they put 44,000 volts to Mary, she barely felt it. After a short time, it was decided that Mary would be hung from a derrick car the following day. On that day that Mary was set to be hung, the circus performed without her, much to the attendees' dismay. But when they heard that Mary would be hung later with no charge for admission, they rallied into a fervor. So they took Mary to the Clinchfield Yards in Erwin, Tennessee, where 2,500 people would watch Mary hung. The people paraded Mary to the rail yards, where they wrapped a chain around her neck as well as a chain around her leg to chain her to the rail car. Well, the first time they tried to lift her up and hang her, she was still chained by the leg to the car, so as she was lifted, spectators could hear the ligaments tear and the bones break in Mary's leg as she was cruelly stretched. So they removed Mary's leg chain and strung her up a second time. This time, the chain around her neck broke and sent her smacking the ground and breaking her hip. So they found a thicker chain, wrapped it around Mary's neck, strung her up one more time, and this time, Mary died. They left Mary hanging for almost an hour, then they put her in her grave. Some claim the crowd sawed Mary's tusks off, but others didn't recount that. The odd part is that the infamous picture of Mary hanging, yes, there's only one, shows an elephant with no tusks hanging from the rail car. So that could mean multiple things. 1, that the photo was fake. 2, that they sawed her tusks off before they hung her. Or 3, that they sawed off her tusks and then re-hung her to take the picture. And thus, the people's thirst for justice was quenched. But little did they know that this act would haunt the town of Erwin forever. Even today, Erwin isn't known for much except the hanging of Mary the elephant.